are listening to the Healthy Leader Podcast with Traci Fisher, episode number 39.
Welcome to the Healthy Leader Podcast, where it's all about optimizing your health, energy, and performance for your mind and your body. And now, your host, Master Coach Traci Fisher.
Hello there. It is the new year, and I am really, really excited about this episode because I just got off of an awesome vacation, and there was a lot, and I mean a lot, of disruption around it. And I had a massive aha that I want to share with you around disruption and how you can think about it and actually use it to your advantage. So as the background, I was really looking forward to my holiday vacation. We were headed to the beach, which is my absolute favorite place to go. I had 2 weeks full of activities planned, including a surprise party for my mom, 2 surprise parties so we could throw her off the track. And we had all the travel organized and everything was planned out so that I did not have to plan anything while I was there so that I could just relax. And those plans were disrupted. Like probably many of your plans were disrupted with this northeastern snowstorm with all of these flights that were canceled. And our flights were canceled too. And so, of course, they get canceled and we start thinking, okay, how are we going to handle this? What other flights can we get on? And then when we find a flight, we realize there's not enough seats for everybody heading to Florida. And they're like, okay, instead of flying, let's drive. We can do it. We don't want to wait until Wednesday for a flight. Let's do it. And then my daughter was like, you know what? Don't really want to drive 18 hours for a couple of days in Florida. So we were back to figuring out what we could do in terms of flights. And then there were no flights. So there were a lot of disruptions, and I'm sure that you can relate. So we ended up deciding to drive. And at the get-go, I was already managing my mind because I really did not want to drive. And so I thought, you know what? Let's enjoy this time in the car together. We'll be able to spend quality time before we get there. We can have a great experience stopping off in Jekyll Island and just really taking in the sights and taking that time to wind down. And I'll tell you what, the more time that I spent in that car, the more I had to practice managing my mind because I just wanted to get there. So I was practicing saying to myself, I am perfectly on time. I love not having to be on a schedule. We can take as much time as we want. This is an adventure. And it was a constant process for me. And it takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of awareness for all of us to recognize how we are being in the moment, and then contrasting that with our ideal vision of who we want to be, and then bridging that gap. And I didn't want to feel impatient. I wanted to feel like I was on vacation. And as I was practicing that, I thought, you know what? This is the same type of practice that we all use with anything that we want to create. If we want to change our relationships and how we're showing up to that relationship, if we want to change our bodies and how we care for them and how healthy they are, or even if we just want to change how we show up at work, are we being as productive as we can be? Are we using our time wisely? Are we following through with our plans? Or are we even making them? That type of change is hard enough. It's hard enough to bridge the gap of who we are being with who we want to be when life is normal. And then when we throw in a disruption in there where a project gets delayed, travel gets delayed, your kids get sick, customer has an emergency, you get a flat tire or whatever, now sustaining that change gets a lot more difficult unless we are ready for it. And that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about disruption in a different way to think about it so that it not only doesn't derail you and me, but so that you can use it to your advantage. You can expect it and use it to empower yourself. And the benefits of expecting disruption is that you can plan for it and then continue your consistent action towards your results or your goals. You can reduce the amount of energy wasted in resisting those disruptions to what is, and you can actually use that energy instead to create what you want. And also, and I love this, you can actually enjoy the unexpected and the surprise because you're going to view it differently after listening to this. And so we're going to start off by defining disruption. And then I'm going to give you exactly what to look out for when disruption rears its beautiful head, and then give you some idea about what you can do when it does come, because we know that it will. So to start off with the definition of disruption, it is defined as a disturbance or a problem which interrupts or prevents an event, an activity, or a process. And it comes from the Latin disrumpere, and the dis means apart, and rumpere means to break. And generally, we don't like that. We would prefer that things do not break. We would prefer that things go according to our plan. And so we generally do resist disruption. So take a moment and think about what disruption is occurring in your life that you don't want, that you are resisting. So of course, there are the big disruptions like death and a serious illness, divorce. And then there are also disruptions that we consider to be good disruptions, maybe marriage or a business opportunity. And then there are disruptions like I just experienced, which are travel delays or maybe an unexpected emergency at work or at home, or your car breaks down. And then there also are daily disruptions, like people coming into your office, or an unexpected email from a client with an emergency, or a family emergency. Your kid is sick at school, or finding out that you are supposed to carpool when you are in the middle of a meeting, or forgetting that it was your anniversary. So there are many different levels of disruption, and I want you to think about the external disruptions in your life that are basically caused or perpetuated by the outside world, other people, places, things, phenomena, weather, etc. So that's one type of disruption. And then there's another type of disruption. And this is really important because this distinction will help us on how to manage disruptions. So this other type of disruption are our internal disruptions, the disruptions that we create for ourselves. And often we create this internal disruption when there is no external disruption. So, for example, if you are working on a project and you are heads down and it's difficult, it's not time to quit, but you decide, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and check my email just really quickly. I'm wondering what's going on with this other thing, or I'm going to check social media or the stock market, or look something up that you really know doesn't need to be looked up for the project that you're on. That's a form of internal disruption. Another form of internal disruption is when you have planned out your day, and then it comes time to follow through on what you have on your calendar, and you decide that there's something else that might be a little bit more important. Now, sometimes there are things that do come up that are more important, but I'm talking about when you actually know that you are procrastinating and putting something off. That is another form of internal disruption. We also are disrupting ourselves and the results that we want when we don't follow our own health plan or our own exercise plan, when we don't get up when we said we were going to get up, when we don't go to bed when we said we were going to go to bed, when we don't eat what we said we were going to eat. And we also disrupt the results in our relationships when we don't have the conversations that we said we were going to have, when we don't have the eye contact, when we don't listen the way that we want to. We are disrupting ourselves. So this internal disruption is our own breaking apart of our own results and what it is that we want to create. So think about the internal disruptions in your life and where you're interrupting or preventing or breaking apart yourself in a way that you don't want to. Okay, so we've got the external disruptions and the internal disruptions, and we understand that they are separate. The internal disruption is separate from the external disruption. The internal environment is separate from the external environment. Now, this can seem like a simple and obvious concept, and it also can be confusing. It's a simple concept because we understand that we are not the world and that the world is not us and that we have our own individual bodies and reactions and responses to the world. We get that. Simple. Not a big deal, right? And it can also be confusing or confounding because clearly there is an energy exchange that occurs between you and another person, between you and the events in the world. And so there is this open system of energy exchange. And being able to understand that they are distinct and separate and also connected is a powerful concept. It is the one that underlies our ability to self-lead, to be able to, one, back away from the situation and identify how we want to manage our own minds and our own emotions, our own actions, and how we want to self-lead, while also being engaged and aware of this external world and how we want to engage and lead in response to the disruptions. And so this leads me to the first part of my aha moment and recognizing how often we use the external disruptions as an excuse to have an internal disruption. So we say, because I had this travel delay, that's why I am being impatient and snarky with my family before I take this trip to Florida, and why I'm not in alignment with my vision of who I want to be right now. Or because this client yelled at me and has been a big pain in the butt, that's why I'm yelling back and not being in alignment with who I want to be professionally and not maintaining my professional calm and presence. Or because my assistant brought in cupcakes just for my birthday, that's why I'm not following my protocol. Or because today was totally full of disruptions and nothing went according to plan, that's why I'm drinking in the middle of the week, even though I said I would wait until the weekend. That's why I'm breaking my promise to myself. That's why I'm breaking apart the result that I want to create, the result of having more energy and a clear head when I wake up in the morning. Now, I get that that can sound really harsh because life does happen and there are exceptions and there are reasons that we do things differently than the way that we had planned because of disruptions. And I want you to be aware when you're doing it so that you can differentiate between changing and pivoting in the name of resiliency and strategic thinking and being flexible, or when you are disrupting yourself and who you want to be and using that external disruption as a reason to disrupt your wellness and your well-being personally and also in your relationships. And the second part of the aha moment is that when you become aware of the connections between those disruptions and aware if you actually are using external disruptions as an excuse to not level up and be your best and healthiest self, then you can turn the tables. I'm so excited about this. This is where you get to say, oh, I'm not doing that anymore. In fact, what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to use these external disruptions as a catalyst to disrupt my old way of being, to break apart my old excuses, to break apart my old thought patterns that have kept me stuck. That is my big aha, is that we can use these disruptions, use them on purpose to level up and to be the best version of ourselves. So, the bottom line, the solution to the disruptions in your life is to expect them and to know that they come with being alive. And it's great that they are there because we can plan for them. We can plan ahead of time and say, okay, when I have those travel delays, that is an opportunity for me to practice patience and curiosity and strategic thinking. When that client is yelling at me, that is my opportunity to practice bringing my own energy levels down and to practice seeing another person and being curious about what is going on with them and to practice maintaining my professional presence. And when my assistant or anyone brings food to me that I have said that I'm not going to eat, that is when I get to practice both gratitude for that person and also for myself and my own health. That's where I get to practice being imaginative, saying out loud, I appreciate you. I am so grateful for what you are doing for me. And I also want to appreciate me. And so even though I'm not going to eat those cupcakes right now, what I am going to do is give them to the rest of the office or give them to the homeless person or give them back to you so that you can take them home and enjoy them. And instead, let's go have lunch together. Now, this takes energy. It takes being conscious in the moment and being aware of how you are showing up and what your tendency is in those moments, and then consciously shifting, consciously disrupting and breaking apart old ways of thinking that don't serve you anymore. But here's the cool thing. You actually are saving energy, because you drop the resistance to the disruption. You begin dealing with it at a different level. And when you practice dealing with disruption at that daily micro level, then when those macro disruptions come, you have strengthened your capacity to handle them. You have trained yourself to lead in the midst of them. You've cultivated a strong self-awareness while also maintaining your connection to the external environment and to situational awareness. You have practiced discipline and flexibility and curiosity and imagination and strategic thinking. All of that because of the disruption. So you can see why it might be kind of fun and exciting to look at disruptions and to play with them in a very different way. So the next time a disruption enters your life, pause for a moment, look it straight in the eyes and say, oh, there you are. I've been expecting you. Come on in. Hey there, if you are ready to take your well-beingness to the next level, come visit thewellness.coach, where I've got lots of free resources. And make sure that you type in thewellness.coach, not .com, and I will see you there.